Before we begin today's episode, we want to provide a content warning for our discussion of the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. This episode contains themes and mentions of mental illness, historical abuse, including rape, child death, and institutional mistreatment. We understand that these topics can be distressing, so please prioritize your well-being while listening. If you feel uncomfortable at any point, it is perfectly okay to step away. Thank you for being with us, and let's dive in. Hello, ghosties. You're listening to Not My Ghost.
Not my problem. I'm Kelly.
And I'm Jen.
Whether you're a skeptic, a true believer, or somewhere in between, join us for a journey into the unknown.
Because remember, when it comes to the paranormal, it might not be our problem,
but it's certainly someone's problem. Hey, Jen, guess what?
What?
I am currently in Florida, in your apartment, sitting next to you right now.
Are you really?
I am. Turn your head.
I'm so excited. It has been a really fun couple of days, and we're just now getting to recording our first episode because we've just been having so much fun.
What did we do yesterday?
Yesterday, we went on a dolphin tour where we did not see dolphins.
Correct.
But we did get a really close view of the lighthouse that we talked about in episode 2. And we saw some birds and just really enjoyed being out on the water.
It was a lot of fun.
It was. We posted pictures of it on our social medias. So if you want to go see pictures from Jen and Kelly's shenanigans in St. Augustine, follow us on social media.
What else did we do yesterday?
After the boat tour, we grabbed lunch where we had the most amazing scallops.
They were delicious.
They were so good.
What was the name of the restaurant?
Beaches.
Beaches in St. Augustine.
Yes.
The scallops were great, and I got a strawberry daiquiri that just hit the spot after being in the hot sun on that boat.
We both got strawberry daiquiris.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was amazing. Then, after lunch, we went to the San Sebastian Winery, which is another lovely local spot in St. Augustine that if anyone is visiting, I highly recommend you go to. They had a free tour and tasting, which they always offer the free tasting. And I've never actually done the tour because I've only ever gone on weekends. And in the weekends, they don't do the tour because they're so busy. So I was shocked. I actually asked the guys, is this new? And he's like, no, I've been here for 25 years and we've been doing it this whole time. I'm like, oh, guess I've never been here on a weekday.
So we got to taste a bunch of yummy wines. This is my first wine tasting.
Yeah, it was.
And since I don't regularly drink, about 4 glasses, or 4, not glasses,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Tastings
of wine, and I was already feeling it.
Yeah. Yes, she was. It was pretty funny.
And then we paid for 3 pours of different types of wine.
Yes. So at the winery, you can do a paid tasting where it is $5 or $10 if you want to keep one of their glasses.
Which we did.
That is how I have all of my stem wine glasses. They're all from that winery. Because when you go out to buy stem wine glasses, they come in like a pack of 12 and they're expensive.
Right.
So I don't need 12 wine glasses. I'm not that much of a wino. Almost, but not quite. So every time I go to the winery, I do the $5 tasting, pay $10, and get a nice glass.
So by the time we were done at this winery, I was feeling quite happy.
Yeah. And I was happy, but not in any way that the alcohol affected me.
So when we got in the car, I was like, I need to listen to Ed Sheeran, and I need to scream out the lyrics and sing them wrong and dance in the car. And Jen, being my bestie, said, I got you, babe.
I got you.
And I had so much fun. It was fun I didn't even know that I needed to have. but I'm so glad that I did.
Yes, I am so glad that we did it as well. And then we came back, and what did we do when we first came back? I think we just went right to the pool.
We went to the pool and
Yeah.
had more wine.
We did. We had more wine, a bottle of Chardonnay that I had had in the fridge for a bit. So we took that in our nice, cool cups that we have and went to the pool at like 5 o'clock and did handstands and other fun stuff.
We did.
Yeah, it was
It
great.
was a lot of fun. So this is our scripted, unscripted banter. A part of that is so that the people listening to the podcast can get to know us better. So I have another question for you.
Yay. What's your question?
So if you were making a movie about your life, who would you cast to play you in that movie? They don't have to look like you. It's just somebody that you like, you admire, you see some of yourself in.
I would have to say, and not because they look like me or really anything, just because I think she's hot and I like her as a person. It would be Mila Kunis.
That chick, I love her.
Yes, she is drop dead gorgeous
Yes.
and just a really cool person, I think. So,
Smart,
yeah.
funny. She's a badass.
Yes. I love her in those Cheeto commercials.
Okay, so if I had to choose, when I think back, now walk with me here on this.
Okay.
Because I know this person is seen as very problematic now, but back in the day, I would have said Roseanne.
Okay.
Because Roseanne, the TV show of Roseanne, was a family that was a lot like my family. Growing up, it's blue collar, like we had problems, and at the end of the day, all of the problems were neatly wrapped in a bow and solved. She's loud. I'm loud.
Yeah, just a little bit.
She's funny. I like to think that I'm funny. And the way that the family, they all interacted with each other. My kids are loud and funny. That would have fit me, I think, in my 30s when I had a lot of smaller kids in the house. Now my kids are grown. My youngest will be 18. But I think if I had to pick someone for now, I would pick Melissa McCarthy.
I love her.
Yeah.
She is so funny. I have watched Mike and Molly, her TV show, every episode. My parents always had it on, especially when I was staying with them. So I got like bits and pieces of it all the time. But I eventually was like, I just want to watch it from the beginning. So I put it on streaming and just started from episode 1 and watched it all the way through. And I love her.
Yeah, I love her too.
Yeah.
All right, so we need to jump into this episode because it might be a long one.
Yes.
So we're going to go to West Virginia.
Okay. Kind of far. I don't know if we'll make it in time, but no, kidding.
So I'm just going to give you some fun facts and scary facts about West Virginia, and then I'll let you know what we're talking about today.
Okay.
So fun facts about West Virginia is the first official Mother's Day celebration was held in Grafton, West Virginia on May 10th, 1908. It was organized by Anna Jarvis, who wanted to honor her own mother and all mothers. West Virginia is also the only state formed by separating from a Confederate state, Virginia, during the Civil War.
Go West Virginia.
West Virginia is also known as the Mountain State because it's the only state entirely within the Appalachian Mountain Range. It gives a rugged terrain and beautiful scenic landscape.
We will definitely have to do probably multiple episodes on just some of the crazy shit that happens in the Appalachian Mountains. There's a lot of crazy shit that goes down.
Paranormal?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
My grandfather's family was from the mountains in West Virginia. And I know a lot of crazy shit went down, but it was all just people. Okay, so scary facts about West Virginia. Point Pleasant is famous for the legend of the Mothman, a mysterious creature reportedly seen in the area in the 1960s. The town now hosts an annual Mothman festival, and you guys will be hearing a little bit more about that coming up soon.
Yeah, soon. I don't know what order we release the episodes in, but at some point.
There's also Lake Shawnee Amusement Park. It is an abandoned park in Mercer County and is said to be haunted by the spirits of children who died there in tragic accidents.
I want to do an episode on that.
Yeah, the park closed in 1966, but the stories of eerie occurrences and ghostly apparitions continue to attract paranormal investigators. My question about this is it said children who died in tragic accidents.
Yes.
That's multiple, but all children.
Yes.
Okay. So that's interesting. We'll definitely do an episode about the amusement park.
For sure.
Also, the site of one of the last significant Civil War battles happened in West Virginia. Droop Mountain is believed to be haunted by the spirits of soldiers who died there. Visitors have reported seeing ghostly apparitions, hearing the sound of battle, and experiencing other paranormal phenomena. That's all we can do. We can't do too much more. I don't know what the copyright stuff is on that kind of stuff. I did hear that music was originally started as porn music in Sweden or something.
That's interesting.
I just cannot wrap my brain around it.
No, me neither.
For today's episode, we're diving into the intriguing history of a place known by many names over its years of operation, the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. When it first opened its doors in 1864, it was called the West Virginia Hospital for the Insane. Later, it was renamed the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. By 1913, the name changed once again, this time to Weston State Hospital. It held this name until its closure in 1994, marking 130 years of operation. Interestingly, after closing, it reverted back to the name Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. Why the change back? Perhaps it's because the lunatic asylum stirs the imagination far more than state hospital, especially for those seeking to explore the paranormal. After all, who wouldn't be more intrigued by investigating a lunatic asylum?
So was it changed back after it had already closed?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yes, then for sure. That has to be the reason.
Yeah.
Because just saying state hospital, everyone's like, oh, it's just a hospital. It's not that exciting.
There are many hospitals, though, that are popular and known for the paranormal.
There are.
This name change, as far as using this for bringing in paranormal investigators and shows and all of that, I think it's appropriate. I think it was a good move.
For sure.
So when it first opened its doors, it was designed to accommodate just 250 patients. However, by the 1950s, it had become overcrowded and understaffed. The facility faced harsh criticism for its inhumane treatments and was marred by scandals, patient murders, and suicides. By the time the polio vaccine was developed, DNA was discovered, and Elvis was shaking things up on the Ed Sullivan Show, the patient census had skyrocketed to 2,400.
Wait a second. Did they build an extension?
They did build an extension for African Americans because they didn't, this was back in the 1930s through the 1950s, so they certainly didn't treat people equally.
Of course.
Not that this place was treating people well anyway, but I guess they thought they could not have African Americans in with other races, which is ridiculous.
Absolutely. But that's the only extension they built. So how did they get enough room for over 2,000 patients?
So the place was built. We'll go over the plan for it. It had a lot of space, but they didn't necessarily have a lot of rooms. So they're just putting people on top of other people.
Well, if I wasn't crazy when I got sent there, I sure as hell would be when I got there and was sharing a room with 18 people.
Right. The asylum was authorized by the Virginia General Assembly before West Virginia became a state. The aim was to provide a state-run facility for the mentally ill, which was a progressive idea at the time. The building's design was based on the Kirkbride plan, which was a standardized layout for mental asylums in the 19th century. Construction began in 1858 and was interrupted by the Civil War. The hospital officially opened in 1864. It is also the largest hand-cut stone masonry buildings in the United States, second only to the Kremlin in Moscow.
That's pretty cool. I bet
Yeah.
it was pretty in its day. Well, it might have been an awful place. It was probably pretty.
Probably. They brought, because of the stones they would bring in, and they had patients who were the ones that were building the extension, and they had to wait a long time just for more stones to come in. So it was a very long, labor-intensive process.
Oh, I bet.
So we're going to start here with just a brief history of psychiatry, which I am not a psychiatrist, a psychologist. I have a psychiatrist and a therapist.
I have a bachelor's degree in psychology.
No, well, maybe you can offer some insight.
I can try.
So, as an American society, our views on addressing mental health have evolved significantly. Awareness of psychiatric disorders, medications, and treatments has grown by leaps and bounds. While we're far from perfect, our progress is undeniable, especially when compared to the practices of the 1770s, such as skull drilling. It was during this era that the Frenchman Philippe Pinel championed the cause of better treatment for those with psychosis, famously demanding that the insane be unchained.
Wait. They were chained up before that?
We'll get there.
God.
The 19th century brought rapid population growth in the United States, coupled with a surge of immigrants, which highlighted the need to care for the poor, the sick, and the mentally ill. Now, I am not a fan that they are equating immigrants with a greater need to care for the poor, sick, and mentally ill, because I think that implies that immigrants are those things.
Yeah, that's pretty shitty.
But I am just giving you kind of the history of
Yes, of course.
how this happened. This period saw the establishment of publicly supported almshouses. Alms? Like
Yeah,
alms
okay.
for the poor. So an almshouse is like a charitable house.
Okay.
The unique need of the mentally ill led to the era of the asylums. The history of mental health treatment in the United States is checkered at best. Early colonists often attributed mental illness to witchcraft and demonic possession, resulting in the mentally ill being imprisoned, sent to charitable houses, or left untreated at home.
I probably would have been in prison.
I definitely would have been.
Yeah.
The conditions in these prison-like settings were appalling. In many small towns in early America, it was not uncommon to have the quote-unquote village idiot wandering the streets asking for handouts. This was usually tolerated unless they became violent, in which case they might just be put in jail, like just the local jail, until they calmed down, and then they were released.
I mean, that's fair if they're becoming violent. Like,
Right.
They should be put in jail if they're being violent.
Sure. If you're being violent because you're mentally ill, you need help.
Yes,
Back then,
that's fair. Yes.
they didn't really have access to the information we have now.
Yes.
So there were few asylums operating in the United States before 1840. As the population grew, so did the number of mentally unstable individuals held in confinement, often leading to gradual deterioration of their condition. In the early days, the care of the mentally ill typically fell to their families. Due to heavy shame and stigma surrounding mental illness, many families had their afflicted family members in cellars, confined them in pig pens, or placed them under the control of household servants.
Wait, pig pens?
Pig pens.
How? First of all the pig pens I've seen, like, they're not like high fences. So couldn't they just climb out of them?
Well, see, you're thinking of modern pig pens
Oh,
that have
okay.
electric fences and all of that keep them in.
Well, I'm not even thinking electric fences. I'm just thinking like, a 5-foot fence is enough to keep a pig in, but I could climb over a 5-foot fence.
I don't know what they looked like back then.
Okay.
I really don't. But they kept them in pig. Maybe they just were raised in the pig pen, and that's just where they thought they needed to be.
Were pigs in the pig pen?
That I am not sure of.
Okay.
That I didn't see anything that said that they were in there. Some families, unable to cope, abandoned their loved ones, leaving them to a life of begging and vagrancy. Treatment approaches throughout history varied widely. Ancient Hebrews believed that illnesses, including mental disorders, were punishment from higher powers, often attributed to demonic influences. Hebrew physicians, who were often priests, used special appeals to their higher powers in hopes of curing mental ailments.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Yeah. I'm sure it worked.
Yeah.
That's why there's no mental illness anymore.
Yeah. Doesn't exist. They fixed it all.
They did. So then Christianity came along and introduced the concept of demonic possession. Whereas the Hebrews believed in demonic influences, the Christians believed in possession. Demons were possessing the bodies of the mentally ill. And that led to the practice of exorcisms performed by priests. Sadly, those believed to be deeply possessed, often elderly or eccentric women, faced brutal methods like torture or even death. As an elderly woman who has been through menopause, I went through menopause a little bit early because I had surgeries to take parts away. These women were just in menopause.
Yeah.
What they needed was hormones.
Well, I would
be killed.
I wouldn't consider myself elderly, but I definitely would consider myself eccentric.
Yeah.
So I would have been right there with you.
Yeah. We could have been besties in the lunatics.
We could have been. We probably would have been.
So during the Middle Ages and until asylums became established, various figures such as astrologers, witches, medical physicians, apothecaries, and traditional healers stepped in to offer treatments. Their methods included exorcisms, charms, amulets, prayers, roots, herbs, and other various concoctions, all aimed at driving out demons and healing the mind.
I just want to point out that I don't think the witches were trying to drive out demons, because I don't think that was like their shtick. I think their shtick was just using like herbs and crystals and other stuff to heal the mind rather than trying to drive out demons. Personally, I could be wrong, but
I think it would be each individual witch would have their own.
that's true. Witchcraft is very, even today, I mean, especially today, is very like open, and everyone kind of does their own thing in practicing it. So it's very different depending on who you talk to.
Right. So that's just a brief history of psychiatry and how mental illness was treated and looked at throughout history. So now we're going to get to the construction and design of the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum.
Sounds good.
And so it was designed by Dr. Thomas Story Kirkbride. Kirkbride's vision for the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum was rooted in his broader philosophy on mental health care. As a prominent 19th century psychiatrist, Kirkbride advocated for more humane and effective treatment of the mentally ill, which he detailed in his influential work on the construction, organized, and general arrangements of hospitals for the insane.
Sounds like a good guy. So far, anyway.
Doesn't he?
He does.
Yeah.
I have a feeling my opinion might change.
Might.
But for now, it sounds like he started off with good intentions.
Yeah. So Kirkbride believed that the environment played a crucial role in the treatment of mental illness. His plan called for facilities to be built in rural settings, providing patients with fresh air and natural light and beautiful surroundings. That
Makes
can
sense.
definitely help some.
Yeah.
I don't know if it gets rid of bipolar psychosis or anything like that.
No.
But it's always nice to have.
Yes, it's better to be in those types of settings with a lot of light than it is to be thrown into a damp cell somewhere.
Or a pig pen.
Yeah, or a pig pen. It's not going to cure your mental illness.
Right. But
But
it can help.
it will definitely help put you in a better place.
I agree. So the design of the asylum itself was central to Kirkbride's vision. He proposed a series of interconnected, staggered wings that allowed for maximum sunlight and ventilation. Each wing was to house different categories of patients based on their condition to provide a more personalized and controlled environment. Kirkbride championed the idea of moral treatment, which emphasized kindness, dignity, and respect for patients. This approach included structured daily routines, recreational activities, and opportunities for work and education to promote rehabilitation and recovery.
Okay, guy is still sounding like a good guy up to this point.
All right.
I'm still on board.
Okay. Many Kirkbride planned hospitals, including the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, were designed to be largely self-sufficient. They all often included farms, workshops, and other facilities where patients could engage in productive labor, which was seen as both therapeutic and practical. And I agree. You get released from the asylum one day, and you have practical skills. You can go work on a farm. You can start your own garden. Right.
And a lot of people find gardening to be very therapeutic in itself. I wish that I could have more plants in my apartment, but I have the brownest of all thumbs. And anytime I get a plant, no matter how hard I try, it dies.
I don't think you have a brown thumb. I think you have ADHD and you just don't remember to water them.
That's probably it.
Yeah.
Or I overwater it. Yeah. I do that too.
I'd like to have more plants, but I have cats and they'll just eat them. So
yeah, fair.
So at first glance, Dr. Kirkbride's vision for mental health care seemed compassionate, truly aiming to provide the best for people. But here's the catch.
I knew there was a catch.
By people, I mean men. Back in the day, men had the power to admit women to mental hospitals for various reasons, such as religious differences, menstrual problems, depression, or even if a woman reacted to her husband's infidelity. Women, on the other hand, did not have the same authority to admit men.
Shocking.
Yeah, it gets worse.
Bad.
Once a man committed a woman to the hospital, she couldn't leave until that same man decided to release her. And if he died while she was in there, she was doomed to spend the rest of her life in the hospital.
Fuck.
It gets even darker.
Oh, God, no.
If a woman had a child out of wedlock, including cases of rape, incest, any child out of wedlock, any male family member could take the child away from the mother and commit the child to the hospital. That child would remain there indefinitely unless the same man decided to release the child. They wouldn't, because back then it was very taboo and shame on the family to have a baby out of wedlock.
But the child didn't have the baby out of wedlock.
Right.
It wasn't the child's choice.
And what if the mother really wanted her baby and you just take the baby away from the mom? And
not that I think that this would have been okay, but based on everything we've heard, it would have made more sense to me if you said they could have committed the mother for, because of course back then, if you had a baby out of wedlock, even in cases of rape and all that, it was completely your fault.
A lot of people still view it that way today.
They do, unfortunately.
However, once they took the child away from the mother, if she wanted that baby, any reaction she had, crying or anything, they would just go ahead and admit the mother.
But then would they admit her to the same place?
No clue.
Okay. Because in that instance, if that was me, I would be like, I'm going to pretend to be crazy and just admit me to the same place you just admitted my baby.
Okay, so here are other reasons you could be placed in the asylum. You ready?
Okay, let's see how many of these we check.
Down syndrome. If a woman was illiterate.
who got to decide if she was illiterate or not? Because trust me, you guys don't hear all the edits on this podcast, but sometimes you might think we off the way that we read our notes sometimes.
So I'm not exactly sure who gets to decide. I suppose the man that's committing her
Okay.
would say she's not literate, she's illiterate. But a woman could also be admitted if she was literate. So right now, all women.
All women. So if you're a woman and you can't read, hospital.
Right.
If you're a woman and you can read, hospital. Okay.
Okay. If you were dyslexic, if you got the flu, if you were bitten by a dog, if a woman lost her son at war, she would be committed because she would be upset and grieving.
But only at war. Not if she lost her son normally, not normally, but another way.
Grief, just grief in general, is also listed.
Okay.
Epilepsy. A woman could be admitted if there was a shell explosion nearby. Makes sense?
Okay.
Yeah. If a woman fell off a horse, admitted. If a woman lost a lawsuit, admitted. Menopause. If a woman was greedy, if a woman was lazy, and if a woman lost an arm. It says an arm, doesn't say a leg, just an arm.
Did it have to be the whole arm or half of an arm?
Just says arm.
Okay.
But it doesn't really matter because if you just lost your hand, your husband could say, oh, you're not
right, your husband
doing anything.
These reasons don't matter because the second a man in your life thinks you're crazy,
they can just
be like, there you go.
Yep.
Now, hold on real quick though. When you said there were certain things that disorders like Down syndrome or epilepsy, dyslexia, could men be admitted for those reasons?
Yes. I'm pointing out women when I say women when it's only applied to women. Okay. So if a woman's son gets married, the son, if he wants his mother's house, if he, can't afford to buy a house or just likes the house his mother lives in, he can take her to the hospital and have her admitted and just take her house.
What if she's still, the dad is still alive and around?
It only says if, I'm assuming, and this is in cases, this is also around war time.
Okay.
So a lot of times it was just women in the home.
Because men were off at war.
Right.
So what if, and I know you probably don't know the answer to it, but I'm just posing it. What if the dad was off at war, the son admitted the mom, got the house, and then the dad came back from war? Could he be like, you ungrateful piece of shit, go get your mother out and give me back my fucking house?
No, I don't think so.
So then where would the dad go? He's just out on the streets? He's a veteran of war, and
I think
that's what we do nowadays.
Right. I think the son could let the dad live there, but I don't think that he can force him to get the mom out. That's the problem.
Okay.
So if women read novels, they could be admitted, which goes back to the literate, illiterate. Now it's just what are you reading?
Exactly.
Cookbooks might be fine.
But if you're reading a cookbook, you're still literate.
Right, but that might not be the reason that the man chose to admit
send you. Right,
because if you're reading a cookbook and you're cooking for him, then he's like, yay, I get food. But if you're reading a novel and you're getting, educated and learning new ideas.
Yeah, God forbid.
We don't want women doing that.
No.
They might take over the world one day.
Still waiting.
That's right. I raised 3 daughters and they got a good shot.
They do.
So if a woman had mental excitement.
What does that even mean?
I don't even know what it means, to be honest.
Mental excitement.
The only things that I could find, it just seems like any kind of reaction to anything happening in their life.
So they can't be sad. They can't be happy.
Right.
They just have to exist.
Well, but they're not
with
really.
No feelings.
Right. And existing is even kind of
questionable.
Yeah. So you could get admitted if your parents were cousins.
Really, the parents should be admitted for that one because it's the parents' fault that they decided to marry their cousin.
Yeah. You could be admitted for political excitement, which everybody that is listening to this that has ever been on Facebook, you're all in there with us.
Yeah.
So if you overstudy religion, if a woman in particular studies religion too hard,
Isn't that what they wanted, though? Her to be like religious and quiet and
they wanted
submissive?
her to listen to what her husband and the pastor, priest, whatever of their religion told them about religion. But they did not want them to like read any of the like Jesus loves you and you're worthy
Oh,
like,
yeah.
stuff, right?
Well, also, if they start to read any of that stuff, then they're probably going to like start to read all the awful shit it says about women. And then be
right.
like,
And they're like, I don't know about this.
I'm kind of questioning this.
Yeah. Is this the book we should be?
Yeah.
And then boom, in the asylum.
Yeah. Okay.
So seduction, if a woman was seducing a man,
And
admitted.
that could probably happen by just like showing an ankle.
Right.
Then.
Or smiling.
Or smiling. Your ankle popped out because the wind blew your dress up like an inch. That was seduction.
If you had a hard time in labor, admitted.
Who doesn't have a hard time in labor?
I know I did.
But so then, okay, so that one, I feel like, yes, it probably did. It happened. But I feel like men would be less likely to do that because then, well, I guess if the child was a girl, they could admit the baby for any reason.
Probably.
But if the child was a boy, they were going to want that mother around to take care of that baby.
Right.
So I feel like most of the husbands in that instance wouldn't have admitted. Now, can you retroact? Like, can you come back like 20 years later and be like, she had a hard time in labor? Get to the lunatic.
I mean, you could, or you could just pick literate or illiterate.
Yeah, you could pick any other reason.
So, and believe me, some of these reasons are like, okay, so if a woman was disappointed by anything, admitted, okay?
I'm disappointed in my entire life. I'm admitted.
Sunstroke, admitted.
What's sunstroke?
It's like when you get like heat, like you get overheated.
I thought that was like heat stroke.
It's the same thing.
Okay,
It's the same thing.
I was thinking it sounded like they get color, like a color on their skin.
Oh, no.
I'd be admitted.
Okay, so excessive sexual abuse. If you were excessively sexually abused, they admit you, not the abusers, you. This is one of my favorites. Imaginary female trouble, which is what I feel like every time I go to the doctors, my doctors write in my chart because they just don't ever want to take women seriously.
They don't believe anything you say. They just say, lose some weight. Have you thought about diet and exercise?
My favorite is Emily, my daughter, gets a lot of migraines. And the last time she saw her doctor, he said, have you tried yoga?
Oh, my God. And it's not even the male doctors. It's not just the male doctors. You have female doctors out there that'll do the same shit.
I left a doctor because Nick and I would, or my husband and I would go to appointments together. And like we'd have our physicals just at the same time with the same doctor.
Yeah.
And she would speak to him in such a different way than me. I was dealing with a lot of insomnia and everything when I went through menopause. And Nick had just started his job where his shifts change. And I'm literally telling her that I can't sleep. Like I haven't slept in days, like how this is affecting me. And she said, welcome to being a woman. Then she told my husband when he said he sleeps pretty well, but he does do a swing shift. She said, make sure you're taking some time out for yourself to get some rest.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. So now this is my favorite reason that you could get admitted to this asylum.
Okay.
Deranged masturbation.
What does that even mean?
Back then, I would imagine it meant any masturbation.
Any masturbation.
But if they could see the shit people do now.
Oh, my God. Whew.
You are not kidding. So, oops. Bear with me, guys. I'm trying to use an iPad and I don't know what I'm doing. That's it. I guess I need to be admitted.
She needs to be admitted.
I had a problem with my electronic. So, the Trans-Atlantic Lunatic Asylum is infamous for its association with treatments that are now considered inhumane and outdated. Practices like lobotomies, a surgical procedure that involved severing connections in the brain's prefrontal cortex leading to severe cognitive and emotional impairment. They would take an ice pick, put it through the eyelid, under the eyelid on the top of the eye, and then hammer it into your brain.
Oh.
Famously, Rosemary Kennedy had this done to her, leaving her extremely mentally handicapped and then hidden from society by her family. Her father took her in because she was a bit rebellious. She got a lobotomy and it ruined her life. And then they hid her out of shame.
Oh, I can't get over the lobotomy part. Like, my eye.
I've seen stories of people talking about how some people were very mentally handicapped after it.
Yeah.
Others, they would say they would just, your prefrontal cortex is your personality. It's everything up here. So they would sever it and people just had like no reactions really to anything. They just kind of were blank.
Yeah.
Blank human beings. So they also used a lot of restraints and confinement. So patients were often shackled and confined in small dark rooms on their bed or on their beds for extended periods, which could worsen their mental health conditions, obviously.
Yeah. Duh.
Hydrotherapy is also something they used. This method used water, including immersion baths and high-pressure hoses, as treatment, which could be distressing and traumatic for patients. They would also use extreme heat and extreme cold with the water for treatment. Electric shock therapy. While we still use that today, it is under strict guidelines. Historically, it was administered without anesthesia or muscle relaxants, causing significant discomfort and potential harm to patients. Now, you are sedated for the thing.
Okay.
So it's not.
Yeah.
They also, back in the early days, they didn't have good control about the amount of voltage they were putting into people.
Right. So it was just like
so a lot of people would just die.
free for all.
Right.
Shock you. Do you remember when the pens, the shock pens were a big thing?
Mm-hmm.
Like those fake pens? That was a huge thing when I was in high school, where everyone would go to like Spencer's and buy the pen, and then they would hand it to you, and it would like, you'd go to push it down and it would shock you. I hated those things.
Honestly, this place sounded absolutely evil. It sounded good in the beginning, but it sounds absolutely evil. And I would be remiss if I did not point out that this was built on 666 acres of land.
Oh.
So in present day, the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum is a national historic landmark. There I go. I'm being admitted.
Yeah, she's illiterate. Admit her.
It offers historical tours, including ones focused on the paranormal, due to its reputation as a haunted location. Preservation efforts have been made to preserve the building and its history, making it a site of interest for both historical and paranormal enthusiasts. The Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum stands as a stark reminder of the evolution of mental health care and the need for humane treatment of individuals with mental illnesses. So that's the history of the place, and that was quite a lot when you really have to go into it.
Yeah. Horrifying.
I have here some stories, some haunts, if you will.
Okay, let's get into the spooks.
We are going to start with the story of Little Lily.
Oh, little Lily.
First, we have to unravel the history of one of the most well-known ghosts, Little Lily.
Okay.
Our story begins with a woman named Gladys who faced unimaginable tragedy during the Civil War. According to legend, Gladys was assaulted by soldiers and later found herself pregnant. In a state of despair and trauma, she was sent to the asylum. It was within these somber walls that Gladys gave birth to her daughter Lily. Tragically, Gladys did not survive the childbirth, leaving the baby Lily orphaned from the very start. The nurses in the asylum moved the innocent presence of the newborn and took Lily under their care. For a brief period, Lily found a semblance of home among the caring staff of the asylum. However, the asylum was no place for a child to thrive. Duh. As fate would have it, Lily's life was destined to be short-lived. At the tender age of 9, Lily contracted pneumonia, a common and often deadly illness at the time. Despite the efforts of the nurses, Lily succumbed to the disease, leaving behind a legacy that would grow far beyond her years. The legend of Little Lily continues to captivate those who visit the now abandoned asylum. Visitors are drawn to Lily's room, often bringing gifts like toys, stuffed animals, and candy. These offerings are left in hopes of connecting with the spirit of the little girl who once roamed the halls. Many visitors have reported eerie occurrences, toys that move on their own, candy that mysteriously disappears. That happened at the lighthouse too, didn't it?
It was just items that mysteriously disappeared. Yeah.
I think we talked about maybe it was kids like moving.
Yeah.
These strange happenings are believed to be Lily's way of interacting with the living, a playful reminder of her presence.
Ooh.
Whether you believe in ghosts or not, the story of Little Lily is a poignant reminder of the enduring impact of love and loss. Okay. Poor little Lily.
Poor Lily.
Her whole life in that asylum.
I know.
So next, we're going to delve into the chilling story of the asylum's dark history.
Okay. We haven't been talking about its dark history up until this point.
Well, we're talking about ghostly dark history.
Okay.
Now, or the people these are stories of the people that are haunting.
Okay.
The place. That was very hard to say.
Admitted.
Dean, a quiet and unassuming inmate, met a gruesome end at the hand of two of the asylum's most dangerous men, Big Jim and David Mason. Both of these men were not only criminally insane, but were also notorious for their violent tendencies. Big Jim and David made several attempts to hang Dean, but fate intervened each time. Tragically, Dean's luck didn't hold out forever. On one fateful day, they forced his head under a bedpost and jumped on the bed, killing him instantly. Dean's spirit is said to linger quietly, rarely making its presence known. However, whenever the shadows of Big Jim and David appear, Dean's spirit seems to vanish. Witnesses claim the atmosphere in the room shifts dramatically when the shadows emerge, causing a palpable sense of unease and making some people feel physically ill. Now, famously, Grant Wilson and Jason Hall, the co-founders of the paranormal investigation team featured on the TV show Ghost Hunters, visited the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum in West Virginia. So these are some of their experiences that they had.
Okay.
So Grant reported feeling a strong presence and experiencing a sudden drop in temperature, which is often associated with paranormal activity. Right. He also heard unexplained noises and voices while he was in the asylum. Jason also experienced unusual occurrences such as sounds and movements that couldn't be easily explained. He reported a feeling of being watched and moments of intense unease, common in locations that are believed to be haunted.
I think I would walk into that building with an intense unease.
Yeah, you're not kidding. So they did capture some evidence. They recorded several EVPs, which are believed to be the voices of spirits communicating through the electronic devices. These recordings included unexplained voices and whispers that were not heard during the actual investigation, but were captured on the audio equipment. As for video footage, they do have unexplained shadows and movements on video. One of the most compelling pieces of evidence was a shadow figure seen moving across the hallway, which was caught on the team's night vision cameras.
Oh, I do think I remember that episode.
Yeah.
I did that.
So I went over to Reddit because I wanted to see if I could find any, just people that had been there. So I found a post from Val1237. on
Okay.
Reddit. And she was a paranormal tour guide at the asylum
Oh, I bet she has a lot of good stories.
for a decade.
Wow.
So this is her post. I'm just going to read it.
Okay.
The Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, formerly known as Weston State Hospital, is a Kirkbride building that housed the mentally ill from 1864 to 1994. In 2007, it was privately purchased and has become a museum, historic location, and ghost hunting spot. It has a most unpleasant and dark history that I've regaled to thousands of people, and it pains me to be an expert on the subject. In 2021, I retired from my position as a guide and ghost hunt event manager under severe burnout. After all that I experienced there, it solidified in my mind that paranormal things that defy rational explanation do indeed happen. And certain phenomena are absolutely real. EVPs especially can be found in the building. It's almost October and I'm feeling a little spooky, so here are a couple strange things I experienced at my time there. One evening, while training for the job, I was on the first floor with a couple of coworkers, while everyone else was touring upstairs. We were just kind of killing time, quietly observing the area. Light from outside was coming in through the windows, casting on the inner hall wall. In that light, I watched the perfect silhouette of a man from head to hip walk through that light from left to right. I said something about it, and 3 of us watched as an arm and hand moved into the light from the right side. I immediately ran into the room and began looking out the window for someone. There was no one there. At that time, the realization that from the ground to the bottom of the window is about 7 feet. I will never forget the crisp, clear silhouette shape for as long as I live.
That's really cool. It's seeing like a full body apparition is like a ghost hunter's dream.
Yes, the problem is actually catching it.
Yeah.
I think there's been some interesting things that they found on ghost hunters. I definitely see some crazy things evidence-wise on that show.
Yeah,
for sure.
For sure.
So, and I have seen a full body apparition or two. I don't have it on film because I just lived in my home.
Yeah. Which eventually we'll do a whole episode on.
We will.
That place was cray-cray.
So that brings us to the end of this episode about the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. If you have ever toured or investigated the asylum and would like to share your experiences, please email us at notmyghostpodcast@gmail.com, and you just might hear them featured on a future episode on our Paranormal Postcard segment.
Yes. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram at notmyghostpodcast and on Facebook at Not My Ghost, Not My Problem. We post all kinds of updates and photos, especially of Kelly and I's adventures in St. Augustine when we get together, and other stuff too. We let you know when we have new episodes that have just been released and other fun paranormal thingies. So definitely give us a follow.
If you loved what you heard, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen. Your support helps us reach more listeners and share even more spooky stories.
And if you want even more ghostly content, you should consider joining our Patreon. We have a lot of exclusive perks that include bonus content, mini episodes, access to our Discord community, and as we get Patreon supporters, we will add even more exclusive perks. But
we kind of need the supporters first.
Yes.
It's really the meat of the Patreon page.
We do.
So thank you for joining us on this heartbreaking journey into the history and haunts of the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. If you ever find yourself wandering the halls of the asylum, keep this in mind.
If it's not your ghost,
it's not your problem.
Until next time, stay spooky.
And stay skeptical.